and welcome to our weekly press conference. I am Captain Brad Koch over our Central Division, and as we come toward the close of summer, that can mean only one thing, that is the start of the school year. Today we are going to be discussing back to school safety. And first up is Lieutenant Steve Flatt. He is over our school resource officers, and he will provide an update on our response to the opening of school next week. Lieutenant Flatt.
So I'm Lieutenant Flatt. I'm with the Community Service Division, Educational Outreach, which is primarily composed of 51 school resource officers that cover 47 schools here in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg area. We cover all high schools and middle schools, as well as some K through 8 schools. We work very closely with CMS law enforcement, and our primary goal is to provide a safe and secure environment for all students, teachers, and parents, all staff. We really want to be a liaison with the whole school community. We want to build relationships and partnerships with the school community as well as the community that surrounds the schools. Our school resource officers are very passionate about what they do. They have additional training in the areas that they cover, as well as most of them serve in an additional role outside of just providing safety and security, where they try to be mentors and role models and have great relationships with the students and staff inside the school. This past year, obviously, with COVID shutting down schools, changed how we did some things. Most of our school resource officers supported the divisions that they worked in while schools were closed. But with schools poised to open next week, we are back as business as usual. We'll all be back next week on Monday. So that's the role of the school resource officer, and I'm going to turn it over to Detective Justin Comfort from Major Crash Unit to talk about some school traffic safety for next week.
Thank you, Lieutenant. Good morning. As Captain said, school's back in session. It means a lot more traffic's going to be happening on our roadways, especially during rush hour in the morning and afternoon. With that, Transportation Division would just like to give a few tips for our community so that we can make it a safe school year, not only in the classroom, but also on the road. So, for our parents, guardians, and caretakers, when dropping off your kids, please follow the school procedures. Most of them set this with law enforcement and school safety personnel, and they have a set procedure so that it's safe for everyone. We ask that you don't double park when dropping off your students. We also ask that you don't load or unload children across from the school. This becomes a huge risk for them having to cross mostly major fairways in front of the schools and around them. And then we also ask that parents get together to maybe carpool so that we don't have as much traffic on the road. With our school buses, please be cautious when you have school buses around. We ask that you stay back further so that when those lights come active, yellow or red, you start to reduce your speed and stop. At the time the arm is out, extended fully, and the lights are red, you are required to stop in both directions on an undivided roadway. This way that kids crossing from either side or entering the school bus will be safe at all times, and it also keeps you safe as a driver and our school bus drivers. We ask that you never pass a school bus when even the amber lights are active, as this can become a safety issue and kids may start moving. Kids are always not aware of the hazards they see around them, so it's our jobs as safe drivers to protect our children. We ask that pedestrian traffic is going to be very heavy within school zones and around schools. So please be cautious when entering these school zones. Take your time, slow down. Watch for these kids walking in between vehicles and walking towards the schools. If you see kids near a crosswalk or any kind of pedestrian, please stop for them when in a school zone. And if they are in there, do not block the crosswalk. This would make the kids have to step outside the crosswalk and possibly inside of traffic travel. For our bike riders, they're going to be rushing, trying to get to school, especially these kids trying to make their bells. Testing becomes important to them. Please be cautious for our bicycle riders. Make sure we are vigilant when we are the driver of a vehicle. Look both ways. Realize that bicycles may come out of driveways, side streets, or up behind you. so please look both ways when making left or right turns. With these little bit of effort in helping make our traffic school safeties in the area around the school safe, it should make a great school year for everybody. At this point, we're going to have Major Johnson to provide an update on some of our street racing operations that's been conducted throughout the city.
Thank you, Detective. Again, my name is Dave Johnson. I'm the major over the Special Operations Bureau, and just want to provide just a brief update on some of our street racing activity and operations that we've seen in and around the area. So if you remember back in January, at this very podium, we told everybody about a disturbing trend that we saw here in Charlotte around aggressive driving, around street racing, around street takeovers and highway takeovers, that we knew that we had to address immediately to preserve the safety and well-being of everybody in the city. I told everybody then that if you chose to engage in this type of activity, that you subjected yourself to possibly being charged, to having your vehicle seized permanently, and that was all in January of this year. Following that warning to everybody, we conducted several weeks of surveillance and information gathering, where we were eventually in May able to conduct a large-scale vehicle roundup. We seized over 50 vehicles in a single day. We charged at least as many folks in that same day. Total numbers from that operation are 80 individuals that were identified as participating in street racing. Same number of vehicles also obviously identified. We still have some of those folks that are outstanding. We're still looking for those folks actively. There are about 10 individuals that we're still looking for that have yet to be charged, and there are about 15 vehicles out there that are still, some of them still on the street, some of them have been crashed, some of them have been sold, which is fine. That accomplishes our goal of getting them off the street. But we just want to let everybody know, we're still working this problem and still very much aware of it. B, following that roundup, we saw a very sharp drop in complaints and our own visual observation of street racing activity, so we know that it was a success. And C, we want to let folks know that the book is not closed on this whatsoever. So we're still equipped and willing and able to charge folks for this when we see it happening. So if anybody thought that we were taking our foot off the gas pedal, so to speak, that's certainly not the case. So just want to provide that update to everybody. And I believe now we'll open it up for questions. If anybody has questions on any of these three topics, we'll be glad to take them now.
Go ahead, sir.
Thanks. I was wondering if anyone was available to speak to the type of Title IX training that school resource officers undergo in case there is any kind of assault or harassment that a student might want to report to a school resource officer.
Yeah, we'll have Lieutenant Flatt come up and address that.
So obviously, school resource officers are they're going to handle any criminal complaint that comes in at school. But we also work very closely with CMS and CMS law enforcement, so they're all involved in the process. The school resource officers go through a 1-week state certification course prior to becoming an SRO, and we also do some additional training here with them at CMPD. But yes, they would handle any criminal complaint and then work with CMS law enforcement and CMS schools to handle anything like that.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Ashley.
Good morning. My question in regard to SROs returning back into schools. We've heard from school districts themselves that after the pandemic and having kids back in the classroom, many for the first time in a very long time, they're taking precautions in terms of like a psychology, people having more psychologists on hand. Are the SROs prepared for any like additional stressed children or Have you guys had conversations about that? Is there any additional maybe classes they've taken over the summer SROs to kind of better prepare for students who might be under all of that pressure and this kind of anxiety of returning during what we're still experiencing as a pandemic?
Good question. I mean, all of us are waiting to see what's going to happen when people return. This is a time that we don't really know what to expect. But our SROs have been discussed that in fact, they're sitting through a CIT training course this morning to talk about mental health issues. So they recognize mental health issues in students, and then the CMS as well as CMPD has some mental health resources that we can reach out to them if we see the issue. So we're preparing for whatever may come, and we'll see what happens.
Go ahead, Jonathan.
Hey, I wanted to know how CMPD plans on handling masks, and I know the CMS recently voted to make masks mandatory for staff and students. So, how are you guys handling masks this year?
So, good question. Thank you for that. We really are hopeful, and we know from our previous bout with COVID that most folks voluntarily comply with mask mandates, and we understand that, and we really appreciate that. In the few instances where folks just simply refuse to wear masks, it'll be up to the property owners and the business owners to kind of regulate that on their property. And then if there's a disturbance or something that comes out of that in regards to trespassing, we'll certainly show up if we're called and address that. But we want to educate folks about the mask mandate, encourage folks to wear masks, and if there are issues or folks want to make a report of a business or a particular issue, we would direct them to the health department to file any of those types of complaints. Anything else? I think that's it. One more question from Sarah. Go ahead.
Thank you. I just wanted to be clear. So like if a business owner is having an issue of somebody refusing to comply with the mask mandate that's going into effect today, they can call 911 and you all could issue, would it be a trespassing citation? Is that a misdemeanor, or could you just clarify that?
So, yeah, we would not enforce the mask mandate in particular, right? So if it rises to the level of a disturbance and someone is refusing to leave the property after being told to do so by somebody who has the right to tell them to leave the property, then we would handle that as any other trespassing call. And it would be, if it rose to the level of charges, it would be a misdemeanor charge. All right, thank you. I believe that's all the questions we have. Thank you very much, Captain. You want to close us out?
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much, Major Johnson, for joining us this morning, Lieutenant Flatt, and Officer or Detective Kupfer. Do we have any other questions that we did not discuss today?
Hey, Mr. Koch, just one quick follow-up to Jamal's question, or maybe Jonathan's. In regards to enforcing masks in the schools, are SROs going to be working with administration to help enforce masks within the school, like in particularly CMS? Or is that something they're leaving up to the administration solely?
Yes. Similar to what Major Johnson said in terms of getting education and compliance, we will certainly work with the administration of the schools, but our primary responsibility is to work through an education piece to, we understand that it is a very unique time. For the first time in 18 months, kids are back in school. I have 4 kids who are all excited to be back indoors in school, and certainly trying times. We ask people to treat others with grace, courtesy, and understanding as we move through this unique time. All right. Thank you very much. As Detective Kupfer said, be patient as you are out driving around. We are going to have a lot more cars on the road in the next coming weeks, certainly more than we've had in the last year and a half. So give yourself a little bit of extra time before you leave. Make sure you pay attention to those school buses, and when those lights are out, make sure you stop. With that, thank you very much for joining us this morning. Hope you have a great week.